We live in very fast and changing times. We are faced by multiple and intersecting challenges, but also, actually, importantly, by many opportunities. If we look at the global energy system, wouldn't we all want to live in a world of abundant, reliable, low-cost, and sustainable energy? And this seems, in a way, as an elusive goal, but it's actually closer. It can be closer than we think in many ways. The cost of renewable energy technologies has come down a lot, and we've heard about that also earlier today. And we've seen new energy powerhouses emerging in regions that are blessed with water, solar, wind energy. If we get it right, this energy transition can actually create millions of jobs, significantly lift global economic growth, and achieve universal access to electricity and clean cooking. But at the same time, the challenges also are substantial, and there's a huge need for scaling up investments. In fact, to reach net zero emissions by 2050, annual investments in clean energy will actually have to reach $4 trillion per annum by 2030. And beyond these very large numbers, there's also a challenge of actually deploying that finance. There are huge upfront costs when we look at investment costs, grid expansion, supply chain constraints. So we have to face these challenges also in a context of a global environment where we see higher interest rates, inflation, competing demands for finance and funding, and fiscal constraints. So I think throughout this event we explore quite a few of these areas. But what I want to draw on now, and Melinda in a way already mentioned that, is a different type of challenge and also a different type of opportunity, one that is actually very often overlooked or only considered at the very end. And that is the challenge and opportunity of human capital, of people. We need to ensure that people have the right skills to support the development and application of new technologies for the scaling up of the energy transition. We need to have people that have skin in the game, that can actually see and also take advantage of the benefits that this energy transition can create and the opportunities that it can actually offer. And therefore, we need people who are prepared to make the changes in terms of how we live, how we work, how we do business, and to therefore also support relevant policy reforms. All this very often starts with education. We need to ensure that young people are able to make the educational choices that reflect the emerging and changing needs on green and digital skills, for example, but also that schools and education institutions are equipped and prepared and able to prepare young people to enter the labor market. And also that young men and women understand and take advantage of the opportunities that this transition can actually offer them. At the same time, we also need to invest and support the existing workforce, support people to upgrade their skills towards green and digital skills, enable them to move out of declining sectors into new and growing sectors. And we know that this can be a very, very difficult and arduous journey, requiring substantial reorientation for people who are left with stranded skills, but very often also left with stranded aspirations. So we need to also unleash entrepreneurship, opportunities to access finance, to realize the potential and the opportunities that green technologies and the green energy transition can bring. And we also need to, importantly, when we look at entrepreneurship, combine that with a willingness to support people to try again, to try once, twice, and maybe 3 times before they actually finally succeed. And then, very, very importantly, we need to also consider and address the genuine concerns and fears of those that stand to lose from the energy transition. Globally, net zero transition can create about 30 million jobs by 2030, and that's about 14 million in the renewables and grid sector alone. And whilst this macro picture is actually very positive and very rosy, it's of course very scant consolation for those workers, many of those are men, who are left behind, whose communities and regions are not able to benefit from the opportunities that are being created. So unless we find ways to also bring them on board and to create opportunities for those communities and people, we actually risk losing the political mandate for reforms and for the transition overall. And indeed, that is something that we're already seeing across many parts of the world. So there are multiple challenges. There's the challenge of scaling up investments, of building capacity to deploy that investment, and then very importantly, of building and protecting human capital that really underpins that entire success. Very often we see those challenges being dealt with in isolation. Different players focus on different parts of this bigger jigsaw. But this is exactly where we actually lose the plot in a way, and where we miss a trick. And at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, we see our role at combining those activities across those three dimensions. So as an investor, we provide finance to support clients in the transition from fossil fuels towards clean and carbon neutral economies. This includes, for example, the reconversion of high carbon assets, remediation and rehabilitation of land, transition planning, and many other investments. But very importantly, we also then work directly with our clients and other local partners to offer reskilling opportunities for affected workers, to invest in job brokerage schemes that allow affected workers to transition into other parts of the economy, to create partnerships between our clients and education providers, from vocational institutions to universities, and then importantly to provide finance and also advisory services to entrepreneurs. And then thirdly, we also focus specifically on regional economic diversification by pooling different types of investments into affected regions and working closely with regional development partners, but also with national policy makers. And that includes not just the ministries for finance, energy, but also labor and education to really come together. Because it is that interplay between those different actors that is so important. I want to actually give you a practical example to, in a way, show you how that works. North Macedonia seeks to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 82% by 2030 from the 1990 levels, and that's very much in line with their NDCs. But importantly, as part of that goal, they also want to support and address the impact that this transition has on the labor markets within the country. So what is needed there is to catalyze finance into those regions that are historically very much dependent on coal, to also support regional economic diversification, and, importantly, to invest in human capital in line with the Just Transition Roadmap. So we support North Macedonia across all these three areas, together, by the way, with a wide range of other partners. And this led to the creation of something called the Just Energy Transition Investment Platform, which was launched at the COP last year. And that's a platform that, in a way, creates an investment vehicle both for the actual financial investments, but also the associated policy development and policy reforms. And that platform brings together government, and that includes the various different ministries that I just mentioned earlier, international finance providers, the private sector, but also, and importantly, technical assistance and grant provision. As EBRD, we lead the coordination of this platform, and that includes, for example, the EU, many other multilateral development banks, regional international partners, and different parts of the North Macedonian government. This is also supported by the climate investment funds through a blended finance model that is structured around three key elements. One is retiring coal assets and repowering into renewable energy. The second is this socio-economic regeneration plan, this just transition focus. And then the third one is investments in infrastructure and energy efficiency, clean heating, distribution generation, etc. The grants that are associated with this big investment package focus on a number of different things, including, for example, renewable energy deployment through auctions, but also, very importantly, skills development programs for thousands of workers that are directly affected. And that includes, for example, the setting up of training centers, or the introduction of accredited reskilling and upskilling programs, the development of national skill standards at a national level, so that education providers across the country actually teach the skills that are needed in the labor market of today and tomorrow. And then also SME support programs and access to finance in those affected regions. So it's the partnership across the many different actors, across all these elements of the ecosystem, that is so important. And country platforms such as this one in North Macedonia can actually be replicated also in other parts of the world and deliver net zero, whilst at the same time also addressing the challenges to people, to human capital, and building the opportunities, so that really nobody's left behind. So, in a nutshell, the challenges to achieve a sustainable, clean energy transition are huge. The opportunities are vast as well, and the ultimate prize to get there is also key and huge. And it is about bringing together all those different actors in order to really make change happen, and very importantly, to ensure and maintain a strong focus, a core focus on people, on human capital as part of those efforts. Thank you very much.